Welcome to the special meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Good to have everybody with us today. We're going to reach a decision on the total budget, and I think that's a good thing. We would like to begin today's meeting with an invocation from the Reverend Peggy Wells, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led today by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel. Please stand if you can. Reverend Wells, you may start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we begin this meeting rejoicing in you. We thank you for your goodness, mercy, and grace toward these community leaders. Lord, we confess and proclaim that this meeting is filled with your presence, your purpose, your agenda, and your will. Father, we lift this meeting up to you. We lift up its activities, its relationships, its decisions, and creativity. Lord, we lift it all up to you, acknowledging Jesus as Lord of all and asking you by your Holy Spirit to use it for your glory and your honor. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today's special meeting consists solely for the adoption of the fiscal year 2021-2022 Forsyth County Budget Ordinance. The public hearing was held and closed on June 7th, 2021. Commissioners have studied and discussed the budget for the past 3 days. These days were long and much of the week was consumed where the budget needed to have that type of process. We thank you for your dedication, and I believe without a doubt, and I say this without hesitation or mental reservation whatsoever, we have probably the best Board of Commissioners in the state of North Carolina, and I sincerely mean that. The county staff has done an excellent job in preparing the county's budget. It's a big one. Started out with me using a figure of $503 million, but it's coming in just under $503 million, which is still a great deal of money. And all of this was taken care of by the expertise and a commitment to public service by the staff of the people who keep this county running. Speaking of the staff, their leader is our county manager, Dudley Watts, and I will turn the remainder of the meeting over to Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. As we left the meeting yesterday, there were really two options that had emerged and are available for your consideration this afternoon. So if I could ask Kyle Wolf to come up, our budget management director. He and his staff have worked for a year, I will say, on this budget as we've closed out last year and then do all the things that it takes to get to where we are today. And so these are hot off the press. They, Kyle and we had a meeting earlier this morning, kind of stepped back through the presentation of it, stepped back through the numbers, and so Kyle has just completed making sure that everything's in order for you. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Kyle to review in detail the option A and then review in detail option B. And then I am going to just spend a little bit of time stepping through each section just so we kind of fully disclose to the community, the budget ordinance as a document and what it contains, just so we can kind of fully disclose that. And then the board can take whatever action, whether to approve or to table or whatever you want to do with the budget at this point. As was discussed yesterday, you have actually an amendment to the budget that really outlines the policy issues, several policy issues that it was requested that we put in a separate board action for the board to take. And so we've done that, and you'll see at the very last part of your packet an amendment to the fiscal year 2021-22 budget to add additional board-directed initiatives, and we put them in that place in the agenda. And so you'll have that, but we can take that up after you make a decision about whether or not you want to approve either of the options or some combination of those. So with that, I'll turn it, unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Kyle.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Dudley was saying, we do have two budget ordinances prepared for your consideration based on the discussions that we've had the past couple days. And I just want to echo everybody, what Dudley had said, and I really appreciate everybody's help with this process, especially the board, but also my staff and really everybody in the county. We couldn't have gotten to this point without everybody pulling in the same direction. So, so thank you for that. I will start with option A and walk through. And so, as you'll remember, when we presented the budget, the county manager's FY22 recommended budget, it was balanced at, as Mr. Plowley was saying, a little over $503 million. There were a couple of adjustments that were made prior to our budget workshops this week. One was just kind of recognizing some additional revenue and expenditures for a grant that we did have budgeted, but not at the appropriate level. So we received additional funding, and so that's what the change is for NC Cooperative Extension. And then we talked about at the detailed budget presentation how there could be some adjustments to the debt leveling rates for the courthouse, as well as our 2016 public improvement bond, and that did happen. And so you can see there in the second line there where we decreased our transfer to the capital reserve fund, basically decreasing the amount of funds we need for debt service next year, but also reducing the tax rate. And then we reduced some appropriated fund balance there as well. And so really we came in yesterday or Monday with, or Tuesday with a $502 million budget. The manager has recommended several alternate service level requests, and we talked about those. But again, it's the, for emergency services, it's the EMS, the utilization hour, the unit hour utilization rate for their improvement plan. There is some additional funding for public health with the Neighborhood Equity Atlas, some additional funding for DSS, and then 3 additional security guards for Forsyth Tech, some additional funding for a Triad Park Greenway that's offset by some significant intergovernmental revenue with Guilford County as well. There's a contract for HR, and then a contract for legislative services, a citizen survey, and an internship program in the manager's office. This was all part of what we had. As you remember, we said there was about $8.3 million available to appropriate or reduce taxes. And so that got us to, again, down to this $502 million budget. And so option A essentially reduces the tax rate by 1.6 cents and is balanced at a tax rate of 67.18 cents. Just as a reminder, the current tax rate in FY21 is 74.35. This is a reval year, of course, and so our revenue neutral rate is 67.03, but you'll also remember that as part of our debt leveling plan from the 2016, the $430 million bond referendum in 2016, we had planned to have a tax increase in this year. And so, and I think actually originally way back in 2016, 2017, when we were doing it, it was going to be about a 3.8 cents tax rate increase, and it's slowly gone down. I think it was 2.9 cents even earlier this year was what we were planning. And then it's actually only 2.55 cents as a result. So, so this option A, again, reduces the tax rate by 1.6 cents. Below what the recommended budget came in at, and then it reduces the budget reserve and also appropriates some additional fund balance, and that's how we get to a total balanced budget of $499,359,112. And I know that's a lot of numbers to throw out, and really a very simplistic way of looking at it, but that's option A.
And the The only addition there is that you'll see down at the bottom is the fire tax district rates. The adjustment made from the county manager's recommended rate was to actually increase that rural hall suburban fire tax district rate from 10 as recommended to 10.5. And so, and that'll be true in both.
In
options.
both, right. Okay.
Kyle, for
Yep.
the sake of clarity, would you explain what the concept revenue neutral means?
So, so every 4 years when we do a reevaluation, it's anticipated that the property tax, the property base will grow, and in order to ensure that we want to make sure basically it is the rate that we would set to get the same amount of revenue the year prior from property tax. So it was 74.35 cents last year based on, I think it was a little over 12% growth in the tax base. And if you look over the last 4 years, there's a little bit of an adjustment as well that gets added onto it. We get to it, basically, we have to have our revenue neutral rate was 67.03. That would have gotten us the amount of revenue as the prior year, 67.03.
And there is a statutory requirement to disclose that revenue neutral rate to citizens. So.
Right.
Thank you, Kyle.
Mm-hmm. And so, option B, again, I don't know if everything stays the same in option B, basically from what was originally included in the recommended budget, and then the similar adjustments, as well as the manager's recommended alternate service level adjustments. And then basically option B is balanced with a tax rate of 67.78 cents, which is it's a 1 cent decrease from the manager's from the budget that was recommended. Well, it's 1.1 cents because of the other adjustment, but it's a 1 cent decrease in the tax rate, essentially. And this would fund some additional alternate service level requests. There's $100,000 for the sheriff's office to fund. He had a request for his real-time intelligence center. It was a request for 3 positions. This would allow at least 1. There's additional funding for a men's health coordinator in public health. It would provide the senior services $200,000 for its capital campaign. Would also increase senior services operating requests by $5,000. And it would increase the Shepherd Center of Kernersville and Greensboro by Kernersville and Winston by $10,000. It would increase the amount for Center for Creative Economy by $16,000, so it's for a total of $25,000. Arts Council would increase by $70,000. Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods would increase by $60,200. The Conservation Fund would receive $100,000 for its Shallow Ford project, and then Winston-Salem Theater Alliance would receive $90,000. All of these, we would reduce the budget reserve that I didn't really go into it in the first option, but it's the same concept where we are appropriating money from the American Rescue Plan. We're using a little over $6 million of those funds for FY22. And then it reduces the property tax rate by a penny and then would increase appropriated fund balance. And that gets you to a budget of $500,070,528. And again, sets the tax rate at 67.78 cents, again, down from 74.35, a little higher than 67.03, which was the revenue neutral rate. And again, it sets rural Hall's fire tax district, the suburban fire tax district rate at 10.5 cents. Happy to go into anything else.
Okay. Very good. If there are no questions, I'll dive into the document itself. And it actually does not matter if you look at option A or option B on the documents. The numbers are going to be a little bit different, but the structure of the document is the same. And as I go through it, I'll ask Kyle or Gordon if I miss something that needs to be said. Just make sure y'all interrupt me as we go through, but I'm going to get on through it. Obviously, the county budget ordinance is practically one of the most important documents that you're going to approve in a given year. It sets out the spending plan for the year, and it is what we go back and amend from time to time in board meetings. We'll bring amendments to you as certain things happen, particularly on the expenditure side as we receive grants and what have you. But in the structure of the document is, the state treasurer actually has sort of prescribed documents. So if you go through from counties across the state, a lot of it will look the same, but we've added things that really customize it for this board and for the policies that this board has adopted through the years. And when I make the statement whenever I present the budget that I've put the budget together in the form and honoring the board policies, that's really what I mean. I really mean I'm coming back to this document. So anyway, section 1 is revenues and appropriated fund balances. Obviously, the general fund is the largest one and the one that we talk about the most, but we do have other funds that are part of the annual budget. It's the Law Enforcement Equitable Distribution Special Revenue Fund. It's the Emergency Telephone System Special Revenue Fund, the O. Moser Special Revenue Fund that was part of a donation a gentleman made some time ago, and then the Capital Reserve Fund and the debt service funds, which are the newest ones that we set up, really to take that debt service so that we could be more transparent about the amount of dollars that gets transferred into that every year, and it made it easier for us to track that those debt leveling plans. It clearly puts debt leveling dollars into the debt service, into the capital reserve, and then we transfer what's needed for the debt service payments into the debt service fund. So this is what we call the kind of the ordinance level, and on the revenue side, section 2. Let's see. Yeah, section 2 is the appropriations, and this section really outlines the policy, sort of that distinguishing line between policy and administration. And so what you've got in here are you've basically said the county manager has these responsibilities as he carries out this budget. And so it talks about in administering the ordinance, the county manager is authorized to make transfers from one appropriation, including contingency, to another which within the same fund or financial plan. Talks about transfers needing to be reported to you at the next regular meetings, which we do, and then recorded in the minutes. And then the statement that appropriations for land and new buildings, including the ordinance, may be expended only after approval by the Board of Commissioners. It basically outlines authorities. That second paragraph, it has 12 things in there that y'all have authorized staff to do. And if those were not there, obviously we'd be bringing those other items to you through the year. We've not really changed anything in here. There was one section, there was a 9 and 10, particularly where it says item 9, agreements for the care, maintenance, and support of juveniles in the custody of Forsyth County Department of Social Services. There was one that was one that dealt with court-ordered placements for juveniles outside. That gave me specific authorization. We've eliminated that one because it really doesn't matter. You've given me the authorization to basically pay for the maintenance and support of juveniles who have court-ordered placements. I really don't have any choice. I don't think you have any choice. If you wanted us to report back to those, we certainly could do that. Obviously, if there's a court order that's really out of the norm for a juvenile in the custody of the county or outside the custody of the county, I'd let you know that there was something weird going on there. But basically, we haven't changed any of those authorities. Talks about the appropriations for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools are subject to allocation by purpose, function, and project. That triggers a requirement for them to let us know if they move away from that. The last paragraph there talks about the behavioral health services appropriations. We really specifically talk about those, particularly the ones that kind of flow back into the general fund from those maintenance of effort dollars. And so we felt like it was important just to outline those in that section. So we've got some authorities around that. In section 2, the rest of it is really the general fund expenditure side, and this is what we call the ordinance level. And so you've basically given the emergency management, interagency communication, sheriff, so on and so forth, an ordinance level requirement. So the sheriff, for example, there's $61,721,000 that's kind of outlined there. Animal services is outlined separately in a service level. If there were to be transfers between sheriff and animal services, since you've got those specifically authorized amounts, that would need to come back to you. And then you can see really it's at the departmental level, and then we outline the schools in a lot of detail because there's that purpose and function allocation that's there. And basically it's the rest of the county departments. Obviously, if the airport got a large grant and their budget exceeded $3.2 million, we'd come back to you and we would amend that departmental budget amount. You have the expenditure side for the other funds as well that are outlined there, and you can see clearly now debt service fund at $81,892,318. And before that was sort of embedded in the departmental piece, harder to track just because we didn't have we had the debt leveling plan dollars there, but they weren't really appropriated because we were just holding them. Now they're in a separate reserve fund, and that works out very, very well. And you can see we actually have a lower transfer to the capital reserve, from the capital reserve fund to the debt service fund, and that is a function of debt leveling dollars that are made available. Section 3 is contingency. Basically, you've got the contingency requirements there. Section 4 is compensation and allowances of elected officials. As you know, we move elected official salaries with the funding level that we provide to departments. So we just outline that specifically, and we've done that for a lot of years now. Sheriff's and registered deeds employees, we actually fix the number of employees in the sheriff's office and in the registered deeds, and we specifically fix the number of authorized full-time sworn law enforcement officers as well. That helps us in compliance with some state statutes around benefits that are paid in terms of 401k and other benefits to sworn law enforcement officers. Ad valorem tax levy, basically where we are levying ad valorem property tax on all properties having a situs in Forsyth County. It talks about the rate that would be established at, and then it also talks about the collection rate that we're using, that really that revenue is dependent on. Debt leveling plans, we specifically outline debt leveling plans in the ordinance so that the taxpayer can look at that and see very clearly what that is. Levy of privilege license and other taxes. We have very few authorized privilege licenses. I think just one is the current situation, but we do need that ability, to the extent authorized by law, to levy those. The tax levies for the fire and fire rescue protection districts, you can see that list there. Because we've had some consolidations and because you've got fire tax districts that have now been absorbed in terms of service areas by other departments, you've got more fire tax districts and service districts than you actually have departments. But that is a good thing in that we've had some consolidations. Specifically this year, the Walkertown, City View, and Talley's Crossing now are all served by Walkertown. And as you can see, we've moved toward a uniform rate there, which becomes fair to everybody. Section 10, Employee Health Benefits Internal Service Fund. Obviously, we have a lot of employees. We run a self-funded insurance program, and this is where we account for the premiums paid both by the county and by the employees into this fund, and also the expenses that we make on their behalf, and that does carry a separate fund balance. Section 11, it is
Nothing, sorry. Gordon just pointed out, so in option A and option B, option A, under the Employee Health Benefits Fund, the revenues are correct in option A, and option B, the total is correct, but the premiums number is not correct, so we'll need to adjust that.
Okay.
In doing, that was the first thing.
Yeah, I got it. Just when the board takes action, just move to approve the correction, and we'll acknowledge that when we get there if that's where we go. So thank you. Appreciate that, Kyle. So you've got Section 11, which basically outlines that we have included a major capital improvements program into the document for information only. Obviously, as we start taking actions on those, any final approval of any project would be subject to the subsequent action by the Board of Commissioners. Section 12 is brand new, so I'll just read this one. It is the America Rescue Plan Act funds. We included this section in there because we wanted to be crystal clear what we were doing with revenue loss, since that was sort of a backbone of the budget that we have this year. And so we just wanted to state that very clearly in the ordinance, and also the fact that we had talked so much about the plan to use that revenue loss amount over 3 years. And so we put that in the budget. This will be in the budget for a couple of years, and we'll update it every year. But basically says the adopted budget includes a transfer of $18,194,145 in American Rescue Plan Act funds from the Pandemic Relief Special Revenue Fund. This is the amount of funds that's been identified as revenue loss for the 2020 calendar year and is available for appropriation as outlined in the Treasury guidance. The intent of the Board of County Commissioners is to utilize $6,064,715, which is 1/3 of the 2020 revenue loss in each of the 3 years beginning fiscal year 2021-2022. These funds will be used by the county to provide government services, including expenses in operating emergency services as set forth in the budget. Were we also going to say public safety in there? I think we were. Okay, we need to pull that in as well. Very good. And so essentially what we've been very, very clear about that. Obviously, if we get additional revenue loss when we close out this year, we might have to modify that, although at this point, I'm not real optimistic that we're going to have additional revenue loss, but we'll see where we go. Section 13 has been in previous budgets and is in the same manner as before, and basically just outlines that the Board of Commissioners is concerned that strong financial condition at present could create unrealistic expectations with grantee organizations, and it's really just something that we put in all our grantee agreements to communicate to folks that that the grantee organizations, they should notify us of substantive changes in their other sources of financial report, and just kind of keep us posted around how things go with them as well. Teacher supplements, we have modified a little bit because last year, if you remember, we had the language in there that talked about, since it was the first time the Article 46 money was coming in, it was, how we were going to provide those dollars to the school system through the year, and we landed on a sort of a delayed implementation of that, really because we know we're going to have a catch-up when we close out the year at first quarter. They're going to get a substantial number of dollars. I'm just going to kind of read this one because we have made changes here. It's the intention of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners that teacher supplement payments funded by the county be used solely to supplement teacher compensation. That actually had been in previous ordinances forever, and so we kind of pulled two sections together. On March 3rd, 2020, the citizens of Forsyth County approved the Article 46 sales tax referendum, which provided additional funding to the county, which may be used for any purpose. It is the intent of Forsyth County Board of Commissioners that revenue generated from Article 46 will be used entirely for supplemental income for teachers over and above the base year funding level, and these funds will not be used to supplant any prior current expense of the Board of Education's budget. We were able to identify this year the baseline amount for teacher supplements, which shall be $19,798,498, which was the amount paid in fiscal year 2019-2020, excluding the $3,696,017 funded with a temporary 1 cent property tax. Because if you remember, we went ahead and did that one in advance of the referendum. The board had actually funded part of that. The Board of Education shall report back to the Board of Commissioners annually by December 31st, a report that includes the amount it paid for teacher supplements in the prior year, as well as the teacher supplement schedule demonstrating progress toward achieving the goal of competitiveness with the top 5 school systems in North Carolina. So I think we've kind of captured everything I hope we've captured everything the board wanted to do there, and that created a requirement for the schools to report back to us. Board-directed initiatives, we've just got a couple in there. and obviously others that the board might want to add. The board-directed initiatives for this year is conduct a citizen survey to determine citizen satisfaction with county services. We talked about that really at the winter work session last year, and that's knowing that we were going into this year to make that happen. Study and make recommendations to ensure hard-to-place and hard-to-serve youth receive the most appropriate community-based or residential services at least restricted level. That really goes back to winter work sessions a couple of years ago that really had kicked off some of the restructuring that we've done around around the behavioral health piece, and so that clearly is something that as we go through disengagement and work through that, a lot of work still important to do there. And then study the feasibility of either modifying current facilities or adding facilities at county parks in order to continue to provide recreational opportunities for individuals wishing to play pickleball. And so we have the pickleball provision in the board-directed initiatives this year. PAYGO projects really goes back to some discussion we had earlier on about not issuing $11.8 million in debt for the Caladium project and intending to use our projected reserve or PAYGO reserve going into this year. And so we've just married up that with that board action the board took before, and that we're going to take 11.8 and use it for Caladium. At this point, we kind of have to, or we got to go issue some short-term debt because the board's gone ahead and done that. There's an Appendix A that is referenced in one of the sections, which is, I think it's the one on authorities, which basically, these are contracts that are okay just to issue, without further board approval. And those are things that we kind of know going into the fiscal year, and you can see a list of those. And that's been helpful. It lets us push all these contracts out pretty early in the fiscal year and go ahead and get that work started, because these agencies and organizations and departments, it helps us get going pretty quickly with those. So with that, what did I miss? Anything? I think we've got a couple of additions, and we can help you with language if you need to as we move toward adoption, if that's the will of the board at this point. Thank you.
I don't think you missed anything. I mean, you covered a lot of territory. It's almost a miracle that you're able to get through all of that with all the public hearings we've had. Strictly from a personal point of view, I'm delighted with the teacher salary and overall education budget. I'm tickled to death that we're able to do something for the parks and recreation in our area. And from my perspective as well, when you begin to think about the kind of money that you're dealing with, it's kind of hard to satisfy all of the people all of the time. But with either one, in option A or option B, and I have my preferences there as well, but you've covered territory where you just about came close to making everybody happy. And that's a tall order by itself. Commissioners, do you have any comments on this? You want to start this off, Commissioner Linville? Give us your opinion of what our county manager has said.
Just comment on the budget matters that we're getting ready to consider. Okay. Not sure where to start. I thank the manager and all of his staff. In option A that was discussed some yesterday is basically in the manager's recommended budget, and then down close to the bottom of it, in the it's not pink, brownish pink, I guess, the 6.7, he left that open for reducing the tax rate or whatever other appropriation board members might choose to use it for. And I thought the manager and his staff don't miss much. Well, I want to change that word, much. They don't miss anything. They just, anything that's pertains to the budget, they cover it somewhere in their process. And as I pointed out yesterday, I think, or the day before, that I put much confidence in that, and preferred the option A. And the basic difference is in option A and B is there's some additional line items in option B, and it lacks just a little bit, probably I believe it's about 0.6 of a cent getting to revenue neutral, but calculating and living in the real world and sort of understanding the real world most of the time, there is not enough support for option A. So therefore, when the vote comes, I will vote for option B. There is not a lot of difference in it.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Thank you, Chairman Plyler. I don't have very much to say either. I will just best describe that. I like to always start off with last year's definition of our process was exciting. But you probably can hear it in my voice, I'm exhausted. We've still had some conversations as of last night to just verify additional information. And I wanted to say to our county manager, thank you so very much for going with me through all the processes. His staff, Gordon, I thank you so very much for the legalities of things. And I also wanted to say thank you to the budget team as well. There's a plethora of work that goes on behind the scenes. I know that it looks like it's easy here. And for the roles and responsibilities for me as a county commissioner is to, again, setting the property rate. I believe that our citizens deserved the fair share of the tax reduction, and they should also see that. So I'm satisfied where we are, and I'm ready to proceed. So thank you, Chairman.
Vice Chairman Don Martin.
Well, I appreciate the comments of both Commissioner Linville and Commissioner McDaniel, and I won't repeat a lot of those other than to say, again, a big thanks for the work that's been done. I was just thinking this is my 7th county budget, and I think, I guess from my view, is one of the most complex years because of the American Rescue Act funds that are part of that, as well as the huge changes in sales tax revenue, both from the end of last year to this, adjustments, postponements till mid-year last year for a review. It's been a difficult 12 months, and we certainly, I think, have ended up in a good place, but that 12 months has created a huge amount of work and anxiety on a lot of folks in this county that have served our citizens well during a very difficult time. So I certainly want to thank all of them for that, all the good work that's been done. I think the presentation this year, the budget, I want to really commend our county manager because he's been doing this a long time, been doing it a long time here, and yet I think his kind of realignment and adjustment and explanation of sort of the priorities and emphasis that kind of work through a series of the big picture to the small picture was simply done in a different way this year. And I thought it was very helpful, and it kind of helped guide and focus discussion. So that part was really good. I think we've had a lot of discussions about sort of the school funding issues, and I feel good about where we ended up with that, and I think that will be good, particularly as we get through. So, and because of the American Rescue Act, there's some other, at least general consensus among our budget staff that a number of those items will be eligible to be considered for funding later, which is going to be sort of another round of budget work in September. And I think that will end up making a big difference for our community. And I think it really gets at the difference between, excuse me, option A and option B, is that B includes some things that I think make a difference in a lot of agencies that support our community and do a lot of great work that it's appropriate for the county to be a part of. And I think it's Nobody tries to be like somebody else, but I think a lot of successful big cities, both city governments and county governments, invest in their community. I think this represents some of those investments, and I think the American Rescue Act will be a big opportunity to invest in our community. So special thanks to all the people who've worked on this, and I actually want to thank my colleagues here. I think everyone has worked hard and have really been engaged, and it's I appreciate the chairman's comments. This is the best commission in the state. That may be there's no measurement tool for that, but I think we're a pretty effective group. Thank you.
Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Briefly, I wanted to thank the staff because I know you guys work pretty hard. So thank you very much. I'll get some sleep. And to my colleagues on the board, I think all is going to go well. I'm an option B guy now, which is great. And I wish this county much success this year.
Commissioner Fleming Elamine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me echo appreciation to the staff, the county manager, and this fabulous supporting staff for the work they've done on this budget. The essence of economics is taking limited resources to satisfy unlimited wants, and this budget is sort of a testimony to that, because you can never satisfy everyone, but you've done a stellar job, I think, in distributing the resources. We got 387,274 people living in Forsyth County, according to one estimate. And I'm sure they will all appreciate a little tax break in the property taxes. And my sentiment is to go with, of course, option B, because we satisfy some community needs as well as a decrease in the property taxes with that option. Thank you again very much.
Commissioner, last but not least, Commissioner Gloria Whisenhunt.
Thank you. Well, obviously, option A has been my desire, is one that Richard and I submitted. I am so happy to be able to trust the information that our staff gives us. It's amazing what you all do. I know that you look after us all through the year. It's not just one time at budget time, it's all through the year. Dudley, I've said this before and I'll say it again, you have a real talent for recognizing talent, and I thank you for the folks that you have hired to serve this county. I really did, my goal was to have a revenue neutral tax rate. I think Damon will attest to this. My very first budget, now I'm not going to say how many years ago it was because that's a long time. I was opposed to special appropriations. It's just a difference in philosophy. I do not think that's the way property tax revenue should be spent. And I will be that way for every budget that I do forever. But because I don't have the same mathematical skills that Don Martin has, but I do, I can count to 4. And so with that, I will withdraw option A.
Well, you said it all, and I think you've made yourselves pretty clear in this summary of discussion. By the way, we do have a briefing session at the conclusion of this meeting. Do you have any additional information for us to discuss, Mr. Manager?
The only, before you vote, though, if somebody does make a motion to approve option B, if you could just give Gordon a moment just to stipulate a couple technical corrections, that would be great.
Be wonderful. You went to law school for this moment.
Well, thank you. I'll try to do my best. There are a lot of moving parts here, and I really appreciate the work that the budget folks have done. The two technical corrections are in section 10 of option B. The premiums number should be $33,441,711, and that matches the total, which is correct below that. And then in section 12 about the American Rescue Plan Act funds, this is a minor correction, but the last sentence should read, "These funds will be used by the county to provide government services, including operating expenses for public safety and emergency services as set forth in this budget."
Thank you very much. Commissioners, Before we vote, do you have any other comments you'd like to make? If not, do I hear a motion to adopt this budget for 2022?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Fleming Elamine,
Second.
second by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Option B carries unanimously.
Very good. So, Mr. Chairman, the only other item we have that was on the agenda was an amendment to this budget ordinance, and it adds additional board-directed initiatives, and you have this at your place, and it's also on the online system if you wanted to review it. It amends Section 15, which is that section that outlines board-directed initiatives, and it adds 3 of those. It adds a number 4, which basically stipulates that the budget's adopted with the expectation that there's going to be additional funding likely early in fiscal year 2021, based on the provision adopted by the Board of County Commissioners in December of 2020 to reconcile the regular, which is really defined as the non-Article 46 sales taxes. And we included the projection there. As of the adoption of this budget, the estimated amount's approximately $3 million. And so for the purposes of preparing the fiscal year 2022-23 budget, whatever amount we end up reconciling into first quarter 2022, the amount reconciled is to be considered as part of the fiscal year 2021 schools funding. Basically, what we're saying is that would be the recurring, it would be considered recurring moving into other budgets. Item 5 is the American Rescue Plan Act funds. That's essentially where the board wanted to acknowledge those that had sort of met kind of a preliminary assessment that they would like possibly be funded with ARPA funds, might meet the Treasury's guidance. And so we are essentially carrying those over into the ARP process, which, as was mentioned, we're going to leave this budget process and really just enter a whole nother budget process with that $55 million available to you. And so it outlines those that board members had identified. And then the last piece of it, Commissioner Elamine had made a suggestion, and so we tried to document that. And basically, that's the American Rescue Plan Act guidance expands the eligibility for programs and projects serving the citizens in qualified census tracts. And so it's a statement that is really a guideline. The Board of County Commissioners hereby encourages applicants to focus on the QCTs, those qualified census tracts, with the hope that 80% of the funds available in the process will reach our most marginalized populations. And that's going to be a tricky thing because, programs are going to serve everybody. Clearly the guidance is more open on what you can spend the dollars for in qualified census tracts. And so we'll need to make sure we communicate that well.
Do we need a motion to adopt all you said?
It was requested that we include these as a separate board action for adoption, so they are there for your,
Do I hear a
if you want to
motion?
adopt.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to prolong, but I would like to vote on these separately, please.
That's fine. Mr. Manager, if you could outline the first one, then we'll have a
Okay.
motion.
I will certainly do that. So the first board-directed initiative is number 4, and that essentially acknowledges the reconciliation process and with the schools in early fiscal year 2022.
Questions?
I can make a motion. We approve
Motion to approve by
option 4.
Commissioner Don Martin,
Second.
second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, item 5 is the American Rescue Plan Act funds, which essentially formally carry over some of those applications into the ARP process.
Discussion?
moved. Okay, sorry.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And item 6 is the identification of the qualified census tract and the statement around hoping that 80% of the funds available in the process will reach our most marginalized population.
Discussion? Motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tanya McDaniel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
No.
Yes, Commissioner Lindell?
No,
It was two noes, it looks like.
Might want to do a hand raise on that
Yeah,
one.
that would be a good idea. All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 to 2. With Commissioner Whisenhunt, Commissioner Richard Linville voting no.
I'd just like to make a observation on the 6th one. Funds that will be available to be used at some point in time. As it's been stated earlier in this budget process and maybe some other times, that rules of how all these funds might be spent is not clear at this time, and whenever time comes to that it is clear, places that can be best used, I'll be willing to decide what those places are at the time.
Okay. Additional comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
hearing none, I move that we adjourn and reconvene in about whatever you say for our briefing.
How about 9 minutes and 58 seconds?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kaplan and a second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine, and we will take up our briefing session as soon as we adjourn in 9 minutes and 58 seconds. All in favor, aye? Aye. We're adjourned.